When we think of Mr. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, born in Gujarat in the year 1869, yes, I first think of what Einstein said of the man. Now, Einstein said, generations to come, it may be, will scarce believe that such a one as this ever in flesh and blood walked upon this earth. That is Einstein and Gandhi. And then, let's just look at what Lord Mountbatten has to say about Gandhi. He said, Mahatma Gandhi will go down in history on par with Buddha and Jesus Christ. So these are the two glowing tributes made to Mahatma Gandhi. His biographer, William L. Shirer, says of him this: for years, ever since I had read of his first imprisonment in India in 1922 and had been overwhelmed by the eloquence of his words in his own defense at that famous trial, and then more recently read his autobiography and followed as best I could in the Western press his efforts to free India, I had a feeling that perhaps he was the greatest living man on our planet. So, we can start with these three glowing tributes to Mahatma Gandhi from Einstein, Lord Mountbatten, and William L. Shirer. Now, we all know what Gandhi did. He touched everybody in India with his simplicity, with his down-to-earth approach, with his dress, with his talk, and with his ideals. There was nobody in India that would surpass him in the last century. It will not be really an exaggeration to say that he was the greatest Indian that India produced in 20th century. I will come to that point a little later on. Now, nobody awarded him any title, and he never wanted any title. If he wanted, he could have become the Emperor of India. The influence he had had in Congress Party in particular, and also in India, in the country as a whole, if he wanted to become the Emperor of India, he would have become. But he never wanted any rewards for the work he has done for India. He did it just to free India from the British. And that is a remarkable attitude for a man who was loved and who loved so many people. He was loved by millions, and he loved millions of them. He did not spare any effort to reach people. And for this, he also made the ultimate sacrifice. He died for his country. How many of these people who are now claiming to be leaders of the country at the time, or who want rewards now, how many of them have really made this ultimate sacrifice? And when he was dying, he knew he was in the service of the men and women of India. And he accomplished what he set forth, that is to free India from the British. Clad in loincloth, traveling in third-class railway compartments, and reaching out, just touching the people, reaching out and speaking to them in the language they understood. Even in South, where he went, he was called Bapu. Bapu means father, of course. Nobody gave him the title of father of the nation. Like some people today are making a campaign for a certain person to become father of the nation. Anyway, how can you be the father of India? You understand? George Washington is probably father of the United States. United States fought in England, won their independence and became independent. But that was a generation, right? United States was not peopled by Europeans at the time. But there were other people who were living there, and therefore, if a European became President of the United States of America, or an Englishman, or a person of English origin, then you could see, all right, now we have started a new generation or new country, therefore, as he has had a right to be called father of the nation. But India has been living for thousands of years. Kali Yuga started 5,000 years ago, and before that there was Dwapara Yuga, and then there was Treta Yuga, and then there was Krita Yuga. All these long years, long epochs, which saw India give to the world Vedas, Upanishads, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and great writers like Bhartrihari, Kalidasa, Bana, and others in Sanskrit, and myriad other great writers in all its 23 languages and 246 or whatever number of dialects they are there in India today. So this long history with India, who is the father of the nation? Would you call Vyas, who wrote Mahabharata and who compiled Vedas, was the father of India? Would you call Valmiki, who wrote the first poetry in Sanskrit, father of the nation? Would you call Adi Shankaracharya the father of the nation? Would you call Ashoka the Great the father of the nation? Who? Who are you going to call father of the nation? Is it such a silly idea to make a campaign in defense of one person so that you can bestow the title on him? Does it really make sense? And Gandhi never wanted it anyway. But you know, the unwanted title came to him. You know who gave him the title? It was Subhash Chandra Bose in 1944 in a radio broadcast, 1944 July 4th. He called Mahatma Gandhi father of the nation. And there are so many people today, they say that it was not Mahatma Gandhi who brought the freedom for India, but it was Subhash Chandra Bose. Wonderful. Then this man, Subhash Chandra Bose, who brought freedom for India, he gave the name of father of the nation to Mahatma Gandhi. And soon Sarojini Naidu, the Nightingale of India, the great poetess, she called him father of the nation as well. And so it was these people who called him, and he never wanted these titles. And even the title Mahatma, he never wanted it. He was not the kind of person who wanted titles, who wanted jobs, who wanted money. Now look at the politicians you have today in India. From Kanyakumari to Kashmir, from Gujarat to Bengal or Assam, and the whole country is full of selfish politicians who are only interested in making a buck, or crores of bucks, or lakhs of crores of bucks at the expense of the taxpayer. And they want jobs. They want to become chief ministers. They want to become ministers. They want to become MLAs, even though they have no qualifications. But Mahatma Gandhi, with his ultimate sacrifice, certainly deserves at least to be called father of the nation. If not him, who would? But anyway, I'm not really in favor of giving these titles to these mortal beings when we had immortals like Vyas, Valmiki, Adi Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhva, and so many other great philosophers, so many writers. And then there were scientists and mathematicians and astronomers of the yore, not of today. There are indeed some great ones like today, like Ramanujan, the greatest mathematician, or C.V. Raman, or Rabindranath Tagore, or Vallabhbhai Patel, who united the country, or J.C. Bose, who invented radio, and then who was the botanist Nonpareil, and then you had Satyendranath Bose, whose name is given to Bose-Einstein statistics, and then there is a electronic word. Bose is a famous word in electronics today. So all these great people were there, even Ramana Maharshi and Aurobindo. So all these great people were there in 20th century. India produced great many people in 20th century. But now look at Mahatma Gandhi. All these great people that India produced make you feel proud of India. All these people today who criticize India, India is not this, India is not that, the roads are not clean, the people are hungry, there are no rains when you need them, and then the employees of the government are corrupt, the politicians are corrupt. So you can keep on complaining, but just look at the better side of India. We had socialism for 65 years. That socialism took the prana out of every Indian. There was nothing really to look forward to under Mr. Nehru or his daughter or his grandson, or now his great-grandson wants to become Prime Minister of India. Just exploiting the names of these people. And so Mr. Nehru did not really do much for India, did he? All these 65 years they were in power. So naturally, there are a lot of problems in India. Now these problems you have to solve. Now we are solving them. You know, in 1870, India had a GDP of 32%. It was second only to China. That was from beginning of this Common Era till 1750, when British came in and then occupied India. The GDP was 32% of the, it had a share of 32% of the world GDP. And now what happened? In 1947, when the British left, the GDP was 2%. British looted the country. They took away everything we had. They killed people. 40 million people were killed by the British in that period. Actually, a period of 100 years, really, from 1857 to 1947, 90 years. So the British killed 40 million people. They looted the country. There was nothing left there. They sold goods made in Manchester and Liverpool, and they destroyed our manufacturing basis. We were best in metallurgy, in shipbuilding, in textiles. in food production. But by 1947 we were nowhere on the scene. But now we are coming back, and I'm sure within next 20 years we would have solved many of the problems. We are constructing houses for people. We are trying to provide food, education, healthcare. Now we are trying to do it. So now is the time for India, for Indians to celebrate. Mahatma Gandhi saw this. He proposed a political and economic model that was not followed by his successors, because these successors were, of course, they were socialists. They thought socialism was going to be solving all the problems of India, but they didn't. They created more problems. So Gandhi's political model was very simple. You have to take village as a unit, political unit, and the power should be vested with the villagers. They will elect a panchayat, and that panchayat will look after everything in a village. With this decentralization, India would have achieved more than with what you have today. Even today they are trying to construct an urban civilization, which is really not a very good thing, but they are trying to do that. But decentralization is the most important thing that we have to do in India if India wants to prosper. And decentralization puts the power in the hands of the local people. Local self-government should be empowered. And Gandhi envisaged that. India also envisaged the Vedic civilization importance in economic life, like Sarve Jana Sukhino Bhavantu, that everybody will be happy. We do not have to follow the West, either in capitalism or in communism. We have to have our own way, our own Vedic way of solving the economic problems. Thus the models proposed by Mr. Gandhi all those years ago, political and economic, are extremely viable. Now we know that both capitalism and communism failed, but today the communists in India, they don't admit it. Well, of course they won't admit it, because they are more dogmatic than Abrahamic religions. So you got these dogmatic people directing the destiny of India for the last 60, 65 years, first under Nehru and then under his progeny. But now we've got a government that at least is interested in giving some power to the villages, and with that power we should really be able to pull up our strings and then go ahead in the world. Now, besides the economic and political model, and of course his moral life, as a person of great morality, Mr. Gandhi also formed a policy of a homogeneous and
Okay, start back the sentence again, right?
Okay.
You can cut all that piece.
all right. So now there are two problems which Mr. Gandhi had to grapple with. One was the Muslim problem, and there was this appeasement that he followed against for the Muslims. You see, when you are confronted with a large number of people who want to blackmail you and who want to leave the country, making two countries out of one, which he did not like. He had to come to a solution, and then he came up with the solution of appeasement, which is probably not a very good thing anyway. I personally do not agree with appeasement. And the second thing that critics find the fault with Mr. Gandhi is his experiments with young girls, just to see if he could control his libido. No, this also I do not agree. But then, when you are in a family, you have father and mother, they have their problems, but you accept them, don't you? You accept both bad and good of your parents. And same thing with your children. You accept children, they are good and they are bad. Similarly, you have to accept Mahatma for his good things and his bad things. And let us just look at what is his legacy in the world. His method of satyagraha, which he followed in India to achieve freedom from the British. These methods of satyagraha were followed in the world over. You can see that his students who followed satyagraha include Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, Kenneth Kaunda, Kwame Nkrumah, Desmond Tutu, the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, Lanza Del Vasto, Louis Lequan, Greenpeace, Cesar Chavez, Petra Kelly, and even Chinese students at Tiananmen Square. They followed the Satyagraha movement of Mahatma Gandhi to fight the dictatorial regime of China. And then Arab Spring in Egypt owes quite a bit to Satyagraha idea of Mahatma Gandhi, Gene Shaw, among others. So you can see a plethora of great personalities who became his students in applying Satyagraha to solve their problems. Instead of the usual tactics of Karl Marx, of confronting with the owners of the factories, Mahatma Gandhi showed an alternative solution, peaceful and yet effective way of solving your problems. Especially the unions in Los Angeles under the leadership of Cesar Chavez, they used methods other than Marx's methods of solving their problems, and they were successful. Could you imagine that Satyagraha would be used in Egypt, an Arab country? But it was used. And so what else do you really expect, do you want from Mr. Gandhi? After he died, so many years after, people are still thinking of his methods. They're still using these methods to better their prospects in life and also their children's lives. Thus, justifying Mr. Gandhi's methods of Satyagraha. Now, Mr. Gandhi also said, if you read some of his work, that the natural resources have to be garnished and they should be safeguarded, and especially our water, the drinking water, the water for our industry, We have many rivers, great rivers. But you can just see that in the last 70 years or 65 years, Mr. Nehru and his children were in the power. What have they done about water resources? Zero, almost zero. Well, they constructed Nagarjuna Sagar and Hirakud and other dams, but then that was not enough, was it? You had to develop the whole India, not just one or two places. So the previous governments have not been very successful. As a matter of fact, Mr. Gandhi wanted Congress party to be abolished after gaining the independence. But then what happened was, Congress party was infiltrated by its own enemies, like Justice Party in Andhra Pradesh, which was enemy of Congress party throughout during the independence movement. But then as soon as independence was obtained, they became Congress party members, Justice Party. And similarly, many other reactionary parties who were never interested in making the lives of the people tolerable and good, they just enriched themselves. So Congress party, that was the ideal with its ideals, under Mr. Gandhi became a corrupt party. It is not the fault of Mr. Gandhi. So, now, Mr. Gandhi was chosen second by the Time magazine as the man of the century, just behind Mr. Einstein. And that is not a mean achievement. To be called man of the century, that is not a mean achievement. If he was really that bad as his enemies are trying to make him out to be, why would Time magazine select him as man of the century, just second at least, just behind Mr. Einstein? And you know, Einstein is no easy thing to beat. So, then he was ranked in creativity. He was considered as a highly creative person. The way he managed the independence movement as a general, he was compared with the likes of Einstein, T.S. Eliot, Stravinsky, there's Igor Stravinsky, Sigmund Freud, Pablo Picasso, and Martha Graham. And these are all great creative thinkers and writers and scientists of 20th century. So the person who wrote the book, he included Gandhi with these people. Now let me just repeat, who are these people? Einstein, Eliot, Stravinsky, Freud, Picasso, and Martha Graham. Each who each did a monumental work in their field. And the creativity they showed was exemplary. And Mahatma Gandhi was on par with these great creative painters, musicians, psychologists, writers, and scientists. So Einstein was a great scientist, T.S. Eliot was a great writer, Igor Stravinsky was a great conductor and composer, Sigmund Freud was a great psychologist, Pablo Picasso, painter, and Martha Graham, the artist. So, along with these highly creative people, Gandhi was included as a highly creative person. So for all these qualities that Mr. Gandhi had, you know, he wrote more than 100,000 pages. Do you know that? In impeccable English. How many of these politicians today can write more than 2 sentences? Can they write 1 sentence? So, these qualities make him a great man, but he also had his defects. Are we going to condemn him for his defects today? Can we not accept his defects and then march on with our lives? That is for you to decide. There is absolutely no point in making Mr. Gandhi a villain. Today, even in the United States, they are criticizing Jefferson for his problems. And then Martin Luther King is also under attack for similar problems that Mr. Gandhi is accused of. But they did a lot of good things. They did great things. Jefferson was responsible for the Declaration of Independence document. And he separated the state and church. And Martin Luther King, he made the ultimate sacrifice in gaining freedom for his people, following Gandhi methods. And now Mr. Gandhi. So you take all these great people and then say that they are really not very good people, they're not very good people, it doesn't really make sense to me. Thank you. I don't know how it is.
It dragged a little bit.
Yeah, it drags.
Towards the end.
Yeah.